Anirudh, to begin with, if you could tell us about how Einsight is coping with the lockdown, what does it really mean for you all in terms of, how is this lockdown panning out in terms of materials, marketing activities or any other that you'll have to overcome?
Sure, yeah. As you know, Einstein is primarily a software technology company. So a majority of our team is still functioning at a pretty high level of productivity, luckily. In fact, we've seen some of our software engineers perform better when they're working from home as opposed to the office. I think people also enjoying the fact that they don't have to spend 2 hours a day on their commute. And so from all of that, it's been pretty positive. Obviously, in terms of sales and marketing, things have taken a bit of a pause. But what we're seeing is that there are a lot of new opportunities. For example, some of the solutions that we are thinking around, the COVID-19 crisis and how we can use our technology to help companies navigate out of that, as well as some of our other software products, which are pretty easy for us to deploy remotely. So overall, I can't really complain.
Right. Considering you all are mainly into, the software area, how are you seeing your parent company, Gayatri Projects? How has it been for you all in terms of sourcing, components? A lot of construction companies are heavily dependent on components that come from China or other countries. How has the position been, the lift of the lockdown on construction activities has just been a little, it's been slowly lifted. But how have the previous days been? Did you all have a lot of manpower on site? What was the situation
Right.
like?
Yeah, so Gayatri Projects, of course, is a group company or a sister company. Einstein is actually completely separate of that. But of course, through my family, I am exposed to the operations at Gayatri Projects as well. And from what I've heard, it's the main issue has been internal logistics within India. They don't rely too much on imports from China or from other parts of the world. In fact, a lot of the machinery that is used today is manufactured in India. And for all of our existing projects, the company already has all the machinery on hand. And the big bottleneck so far that we've seen in our road projects is cement and steel, because these are resources that have to be brought in from other parts of the country, and then internal logistics, even between states, has been a bit of a challenge. And that has been the primary issue. Of course, there's also a little bit of an impact from a lot of the contract labor trying to move, go back to their villages during this crisis. Uh, and we've seen a little bit of that, but a majority of the construction sites that Gayatri has, most of the labor has, even if they're from other states, have remained on site, where the company is providing, food, shelter, and everything that they have all anyway been providing from before. And it's actually quite encouraging to see how all the individual project and site managers have really taken up all of this with full enthusiasm in terms of allowing all of these people to be on site to live and eat together, and also begin work starting on the 20th of April, all while maintaining social distancing and maintaining all the safety that is required in this crisis. They've also been able to set up these, uh, I would say, sanitizing stations where people who come from other parts of the country or who are coming from other sites, could kind of walk through it, and then they get sprayed with, I believe, a diluted form of sanitizer, which makes sure that they're not carrying any of the virus back into the site. And most of these sites are in pretty remote places, so it's been pretty isolated, and everyone's been able to stay within the site and stay safe.
Right. Coming to Einsight, you mentioned that you've seen the level of productivity you've seen with your employees has been a little higher.
Mhm.
Uh, any strategies you all have in place during this lockdown on, what are your plans moving forward, the kind of sectors you all want to focus on going forward? Would it to continue to be construction, infrastructure, industrial now? Uh,
Mhm.
is there a strategy in place?
Yeah, so broadly, the company remains focused on heavy civil construction and mining, and these are two very large and growing sectors. And these industries, we believe, will also be the first to bounce back from any kind of crisis that we're in today. And even if you look at a broader recession that is expected in India and globally, we believe that the governments of the world will uh, definitely put their resources towards building new infrastructure because it not only increases competitiveness and creates growth in the GDP, but it also creates jobs. And in fact, this is probably the only industry where government, if it has the funding and the will, can decide, okay, we need to create these many jobs and create this much production within this country. And then they can, as long as they have both of those in place, they can pretty much start production in months. Because all you need are the machines and the local materials like quarries and so on. And this is very different from other heavy industrials. If you look at the steel industry or the cement industry, there's a long gestation period. They have to set up factories over the course of years, and they have to set up global supply chains, both in terms of their input materials as well as their end products that they supply out to the world. And construction, we think, is in very well positioned over the next few years, and that remains to be our focus. In terms of the products that we actually bring to the industry, we have a lot of different technologies that we bring to the industry, but on a high level, what we bring is intelligence that can improve productivity and efficiency. And we have done that in the past using telematic sensors in heavy machines, in using cameras that can actually use AI and computer vision algorithms to automatically track what's happening on site, as well as apps that are used by people in the field. And especially over the next 6 months, what we're seeing an uptick in is the apps themselves, which can be deployed and used without any physical contact or without any logistics in between. And we're seeing a lot of demand on that front. For example, we have an app called the Fuel Logger, which allows companies to track their fuel consumption and reconciliation, all just using an app, even without any hardware that has to be installed. And that can be adopted pretty easily. And on the camera and computer vision front, we're continuing to see interest in from companies who want to be able to track and continue to keep their productivity up, even if the managers or the people from the headquarters can't physically visit these sites. And having a camera in place that can just use an algorithm to tell you, how many tons of material your excavator is moving, how much production that's driving for your site, and how that aligns with your goals or your targets. That's something that people are seeing as invaluable. And finally, what we have recently done just a couple of weeks ago is actually expand the capabilities of that AI and computer vision system to also track social distancing and whether people are wearing masks on site. And this, of course, is just an extension of the employee health and safety metrics that we already used to track. And we already used to, for example, identify automatically from the video feed of the camera where the people are and whether they're wearing their helmets and their PPE and so on. So it wasn't too much of a extension from that. So now the platform can also detect how far apart workers are in the field, whether they're maintaining that 6 feet distance. And if they're not, we can trigger an alarm. We can start to keep a score in different regions to see what are the man hours of social distancing violations in the different areas. And we hope that companies will find this to be an important part of restarting operations and then reaching capacity in a way that's very safe for their workers.
Has the COVID really impacted your business in any way, or do you see more opportunities coming forward with, they say that this is the golden period for construction between November and, March, considering about a month and a half being lost because of the lockdown. Has there
Right.
been an impact, or do you see good opportunities going forward?
Yeah, the impact has been purely short term because of just the restriction on movement and travel. So a few of our clients who were all geared up to roll out our sensors onto their machines and their projects, we had to put that on hold temporarily only because we physically couldn't visit them. But it's been reassuring to see that all the existing clients continue to be excited about what we're doing and want to pick up exactly where we left off the moment we're able to, and hopefully that's not too far from where we are right now. And in a broader sense, I would say I continue to be optimistic that this industry itself is going to see a boost because the economies and the governments of the world are looking for ways to create new growth and job opportunities. And finally, the fact that people who had never done before have now started doing some of their meetings and some of running parts of their business over video conferencing, Zoom calls. I think we're starting to see the mindsets change where they start to realize that you can use technology, you can use sort of a digital outlook, not just to be safe during a crisis, like health crisis, but also to just do business in a way that's lot more efficient and in a way that it can save you a lot of costs. So when people start to realize that, I can just do a video call with my people on my site instead of, traveling a whole day and a half there and back, then they start to also be more open-minded about the fact that along with that video call, you can have an app or you can have a web portal that you can use to keep track of everything that's happening on your site and make sure that everything's on track. And so I think it's a boost definitely in the long term. And of course, a short-term pause is something that every industry has seen, except for maybe pharma and the food industry, for example.
Right. Any research and development, any R&D being undertaken currently in this time of where your employees are working from home, in terms of new offerings you all want to bring about to the construction industry?
Yeah, as I mentioned, the one big thing that we've worked on over the last month or so is expanding the scope of our AI and computer vision system to be able to track social distancing and masks. And the way that works is you can actually use an existing CCTV camera feed, or you can just install our own cameras on some of the machinery or in key points of the site. And the way that the algorithms work is just based on the video feed. It basically starts to identify all the different objects and their movements. And according to certain parameters that we set, it can start to convert that into metrics that can tell you what you need to know about your site. And this is a technique that we have pioneered for heavy machinery productivity. So for example, looking at it from the we put a camera on top of the excavator, and then we see exactly what the excavator is doing, how much production, how efficiently that's happening, the variance between the plan and actual, the variance between different operators on the same site. So we've applied all of this to heavy machines themselves, which are the drivers of work in the industry, in this specific, highway and infrastructure and mining industries. But it's very similar. The same techniques can also be applied towards detecting social distancing and mask compliance. And that's something that I would say that's the major focus for the R&D team right now. And we have already, and it's been in just 2 weeks time, we were able to expand and launch that product, and we're working with a few big names in India as well as in the US for this. And we're very excited about how this can really help companies get back on their feet.
Right. Last question, a question that everyone wants an answer to. How long do you think will it take the economy, or rather the construction and infrastructure sectors, to pick up again? You already mentioned you're seeing a boom in construction sector going forward, but how long would it take for construction to get back on track like normally, like it was before the lockdown commenced?
Yeah, I think construction itself is a very broad term. So you're going to see a difference in the infrastructure and heavy civil construction, which is anyway the industry that we are focusing on at Ironside, and the building construction space. Because in the building construction space, there's a lot more proximity between the workers, and it's a lot more manpower intensive. And so I think will definitely lag behind infrastructure, at least by a couple of months. And we've already seen that in what the government has said in terms of allowing highways and other remote construction projects to start on the 20th. And I think they're only now starting to come out with a guidance on how urban construction can restart. On a much higher level, I would say that, yeah, I think based on what I've read, and of course I have no expertise in this field specifically, but I believe that the vaccine is a minimum 18 months away, minimum, and probably longer. But I do believe that there could be a treatment for it, which could come sooner. And I think the moment we know that there's a treatment, people can start to get back to work a lot more like they used to. But in either case, I'm pretty confident that out of all the industries in this country and across the world, heavy construction, infrastructure, highways, mining are going to bounce back in the next 2 months or so. Because, like I said, the proximity is not that high. People can continue working while maintaining distance. Most of the work is driven by people sitting alone in their machines, right, in their excavators, in their JCBs, and so on. And I think that allows it to restart. And it's also in the interest of all the governments to get that started as soon as possible. The only reason I still say 2 months is technically all of those projects can start today. I mean, they could have started on the 20th, in fact. But the reason we're going to see a 2-month delay is because we need to wait for all of these logistical challenges to really be taken care of, right? So for all of these projects, if you either need bitumen or cement, and also you need your diesel, you need steel. All of these materials are having some supply chain issues, especially when crossing state borders. And I think some of the other sites are also going to wait for most of their migrant labor to come back before they can come to full capacity. But 2 to 3 months, I think, is a safe time frame that we can hope for.
All right. Thanks, Anirudh. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and hope you all stay safe and healthy as well.
Yes, stay safe. Wishing everyone there all the best too. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.